Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
We need to deliver urgently to continue to earn that trust from British Columbians every single day.
A new premier. David Eby is now leading BC, and with it, some very big expectations.
So many people are waiting here, and we're all panicking.
Painful waits. British Columbians trying to get visas to travel to India say they cannot get the paperwork.
Just overnight, it took on water and sunk.
And trying to clean up False Creek, the slow, expensive push to remove derelict boats.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Anita is away tonight. BC officially has a new leader. Lawyer and former activist David Eby was sworn in as our 37th premier this morning at a ceremony centered in Indigenous culture. As Mira Baines reports, he says he has plenty to accomplish on housing, affordability, and public safety.
The swearing-in ceremony was steeped in Musqueam culture with special songs and a blanket ceremony.
It's so heartwarming and exciting for First Nations, not just Musqueam.
Musqueam Chief Wayne Sparrow says hosting the swearing-in is an historic first. Among the 400 people there, now former Premier John Horgan and several local mayors.
When we formed government, I turned to the tallest person I could find, and I piled on top of his shoulders even more challenges for him to tackle.
I, David Robert Patrick Eby.
After taking his oath of office, Premier David Eby praised his predecessor.
I'm not as tall as I look, because I'm standing on the shoulders of John Horgan.
Eby says his shoes given to him by his late father give him strength, and he thanked his wife and 2 young children for their love and support. As for his plans for BC, tackling crime is high on the list.
This weekend, we'll announce how we're going to go after the issue of public safety.
Eby says help is also on the way for people dealing with soaring costs. A one-time $100 credit for BC Hydro customers is coming, as is a new affordability credit for low and middle income earners, up to $164 per adult and $41 per child. Eby also plans to move on housing next week.
You're going to see our government hit the ground running on Monday with new bills related to housing. Opening up housing that should be available right now for rent but isn't.
Premier Eby is making no apologies for acting fast on pressing issues. He says his team has 2 years until the next election to make headway. And he has just 4 days to take action in the BC legislature before the session ends until February. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, as you heard, Eby credits his family with much of his success so far. Loved ones and colleagues say they're not surprised by his rise to power, as Leanne Young reports the lawyer with activist roots has always had a political streak.
I can remember him he was probably 13, 14 years old, going to the circus to start a protest there.
It's a memory that sticks with Patrick Eby, his eldest brother David fighting against animal abuse as a teen. Compassion and ambition, says Eby, are innate in his brother.
In high school, he wanted to be student council president. He ran an election, and he won that. So he was, from the early days, he was always driven.
David Eby graduated from law at Dalhousie University. In the early 2000s, he moved to BC. As a lawyer with the Pivot Legal Society, he advocated for people living on the downtown east side.
The Charter guarantees a right of freedom from unreasonable search, and this search doesn't sound to be reasonable at all.
And in the lead up to the 2010 Olympics, became a leading figure against the Games.
We're looking at $1 billion security bill for the Olympics.
His activism led him to the BC Civil Liberties Association, fighting for police accountability. Colleagues say, even as the executive director, he never shied away from frontline work.
He picked for himself the very smallest office at the top of the stairs, and that's because he wanted to be able to be the first point of contact for people who came into the office.
Pastine isn't surprised Eby dove into politics. She says he's always sought big solutions to the problems he saw. Eby toppled Christy Clark for a seat in 2013 and was named Attorney General when the NDP formed government and was handed one major file after another from ICBC.
This is quite simply a financial dumpster fire.
To cracking down on money laundering at casinos, to most recently housing. Political adversaries, while respectful of Eby's intellect, paint a different picture of the new premier's ambitions.
Sometimes David Eby comes across as a little more arrogant than confident.
DeYoung argues Eby has failed on his two main files, making housing affordable and public safety.
The degree to which British Columbians feel less safe today than they did 5 years ago is, I think, palpable.
Eby has said those are some of his top priorities as premier. Leanne Young, CBC News, Vancouver.
Some Canadians are desperately hoping they will be able to travel this holiday season. Many plan to visit family and friends in India, but they cannot leave home without a visa. Many have been waiting for weeks. As Lindsay Duncombe shows us, despite the long lines, Indian officials deny there's a problem.
The line started at 3 a.m. Amneet Athwal got here first. She needs her mother's passport and visa to India fast.
I have my flight on Monday. I have to be at the airport at 2 o'clock on Monday.
They sent in the paperwork 7 weeks ago.
So many people are waiting here, and we're all panicking.
Arminder Bajwa's sister is getting married in Punjab.
I spent $8,000 on tickets, and how stressful this situation, inflation and everything, $8,000 for people. And all 4 passports are here.
In Brampton, Ontario, similar line, colder temperatures.
It feels horrible. I don't feel like I'm living in Canada.
This is India's busiest travel season. COVID stopped Canadians' trips for years. Now there's a rush. Once someone born in India becomes a Canadian citizen, they need a visa to return. It used to be you could get visas online, but e-visas were suspended during COVID. They're back for 156 countries, but not Canada.
We don't get any e-visa to enter Canada either.
The Indian High Commissioner designate to Canada acknowledges an increase in submissions and says resources are strained, but denies delays.
From our point of view, situation looks fine, as I have already detailed to you from the timeline perspective. We never advise people to buy travel tickets before they get the visa.
The line can get intense.
There was a guy, he didn't have an appointment. He tried to enter, and when I stopped him, he pushed me. I told him not to do that, but he put his hands on me. Then I had to call police.
He tells people to make appointments online, but when we looked, there aren't any available. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Surrey, BC.
After months of shortages of children's pain, medication relief is finally in sight from Health Canada. The drugs are set to arrive here next week, but that's little comfort to those desperately looking right now. The CBC's Zora Premji on what you can do to curb any panic.
It's been very stressful.
Panic settled in fast for new mom Shannon Donaghy when 10-month-old Owen came down with pneumonia recently.
You just don't know what to think. You don't know what you can do. You fear for your child's life. Especially at such a young age.
And with the continued shortage of children's medication on the shelves of pharmacies, she felt her options were slim.
Trying to track it down was nearest to impossible.
But pharmacists say a lot of parents don't realize there are safe workarounds.
I just explained to them what they can do with the adult doses to make sure that this child can get the medication. For kids maybe under 2 who probably can't really have an oral, like a tablet, or can't really swallow a tablet, you can certainly get it compounded.
But Wigston has one warning. You can't stockpile compounded medication, nor should you.
The expiry dates on them are typically in the matter of weeks instead of months to years like standard products.
And don't try to figure it out alone.
Unless you are 100% sure, just talk with the pharmacist.
While helpful advice, it's still cold comfort for some parents, like this soon-to-be mom just 2 weeks from her due date.
It's concerning for us, and I know that even newborns would need medication with the ongoing virus in the air. It's a lot of mental pressure as well as, emotions.
But Wigston adds, while we wait for the stock from Health Canada,
There's options, and you don't have to go without.
and when that stock comes,
Don't revert back to the toilet paper incident, I suppose, is where my head goes with that.
more medication is on the way, according to Health Canada, expected to start hitting store shelves by the end of next week. Zara Premji, CBC News, New Westminster.
To other news now, gunfire has erupted in Merritt this week for the second time, and police believe it's more than just a coincidence. Merritt Mounties received numerous calls after shots were fired at a home on Priest Avenue around 6 a.m. A stolen Dodge Ram was seen tearing away. No arrests have been made yet, but officers say some suspects have been identified, and the shooting was not random. Earlier this week, more than 100 rounds were fired at 3 spots in and around Merritt. RCMP believe those incidents were targeted and connected. And just tonight, Merritt Mayor Michael Getz tells CBC there is a heavy police presence on the city's Nicola Avenue. Mounties have told him the incident is related to those earlier 2 shootings.
It's where our fire hall is. There's residents all around it. So I know some residents have been told, get ready to leave if you have to leave. It is concerning. People are rightfully so upset. This does not happen here. This is a fairly small, quiet city. We've never had anything like this happen. It's the recklessness that has people upset. I mean, we've got kids going to school. We've got people going about their daily lives. And you've got this going on.
We'll bring you any more on this latest shooting as we get it in tonight and on our late news at 11 with Michelle Gassoub. Meanwhile, a Chilliwack pastor has been found liable for holding a worship service despite COVID-19 restrictions in place at the time. The provincial court decision found that Free Reformed Church pastor John Koopman could be considered a host of the service, despite the fact he may have not been the one who organized it. Koopman led a worship service 2 days after Dr. Bonnie Henry issued an order banning people from organizing or hosting various events. The ruling could impact similar cases. The legislation behind the mandates is currently being challenged at all 3 levels of BC's court system. If you've ever walked, biked, or sailed through Vancouver's False Creek, you know there are plenty of boats, many of them abandoned and falling apart. Police and federal officials are trying to remove them, but it is a slog. More now from John Hernandez on the water.
You might not notice it from the shore, but False Creek is littered with derelict boats above and below.
It's been here for, 6-8 months. So you can really see the outline there now.
Last week, this tugboat went down.
Overnight, it took on water and sunk. That does happen. Boat develops a flaw in the hull and it starts taking on water, which brings it lower in the water.
Just a few meters away, this shell of a yacht has been anchored for months. Police suspect it's a hangout spot. Marine Unit Officer Darren McDougall is tasked with trying to find the owners of dozens of boats that are illegally moored here.
Most of these boats don't have insurance, so there's no incentive for the people to register it in their name. So for us to track down who the actual owner of the boat is becomes quite difficult.
Just a handful of the vessels here are permitted, many abandoned, others occupied and falling apart.
We do have one person that is constantly bringing bikes to their boat, getting the proper resources, the mental health outreach, the housing outreach and all that to come out and engage is our next step.
This year, Transport Canada, which has jurisdiction over False Creek, has issued dozens of notices to boat owners telling them to move. About a dozen vessels have been confiscated after being deemed to be polluting the water and posing a public safety risk.
If all of a sudden you have 15 or 20 or 30 of those vessels, now they're really kind of in the way for other boaters that generally want to do the right thing.
Those who don't follow the rules can face stiff fines.
That can be up to $50,000 for an individual, and it can be $250,000 for a corporation.
Consequences that have had little sway on these waters as more and more boats drop their last anchor. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
People in BC will have a harder time finding a Christmas tree this year, but don't blame the Grinch. Many Christmas tree growers are reporting a shortage across the province. The BC Christmas Tree Association says drought will leave lots with fewer firs than past years. But it's not just the changing climate that's causing the shortage. Fewer young farmers are getting into the trade. The shortage has some tree producers calling for government support to grow the industry.
Every year it seems to get a bit worse, and even in other parts where Christmas trees are grown, like Oregon and Washington, they're also experiencing the same shortfall of trees. So it's an issue we have to address in the province. We have to encourage more growers, more young people to get into growing trees. We have the land, we just have to have the political will and the means to do so.
Christmas tree production is big business across this country. Nationally, almost 30,000 hectares were dedicated to Christmas tree growing in 2011, and Canada exports almost half of the Christmas trees we grow. Crews near Agassiz are working to keep 2 wildfires under control, and an evacuation alert has been issued for some rural properties. The alert was first issued late last night for about a dozen properties in the district of Kent after a wildfire sparked on the side of Limbert Mountain, as you can see. Agassiz fire chief says the second blaze is burning on Bear Mountain, and it's being monitored under the direction of BC Hydro. He says the Agassiz Fire Department is working with BC Wildfire and contractors to keep them under control. No word yet what sparked the fires, but at least one is believed to have been human-caused. From forest fires to snow on the top of our mountains, Grouse Mountain is the latest to open up for skiing. Take a look. The hill opened up today in the warm, sort of, November sun for those looking for some early skiing and riding. Cypress opened last weekend ahead of schedule after seeing some early snow, and cold temperatures allowed for snow making. Mount Seymour, meanwhile, is scheduled to open December 9th, but that could change. Opening day for Whistler Blackcomb is set for November 24th. But the mountains there have already seen plenty of snow. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us from the North Shore now. Joe, I can't recall a newscast where we had ski hills opening and wildfires still burning. Can you?
Dan, I don't think I can either. And I know I've seen a lot when it comes to weather combos.
Really?
And I don't think that we've had wildfires this late in the season at the same time that we've had ski hills open this early. And we can really blame this cold but clear Arctic air mass that followed such a record drought through the late summer and early fall. In fact, I was going to look at the BC wildfire danger rating for today, and then I remembered they don't even issue it past November 1st all the way to April because this is off season. Let me show you the culprit for both the snow and the fires, that high pressure that has been in place all week, making for dry conditions. And it really is the fact that we needed so much moisture to replenish the drought conditions through the early fall. This weather maker, though, moving in from the Pacific is going to change the game, so we don't have to worry about this latest round of dry weather too much longer. We're going to see that precip starting Sunday. Look at the temperatures right now across the South Coast. 2 at YVR, we're already -1 across Nanaimo, and that's something we've also got with this high pressure, those crisp mornings. So taking you through the overnight, we're down at around a 2 or 3 right now, back up to a -1 tomorrow, 8 for the afternoon, Dan, and then I'll talk about the rain that is coming for the back end of the weekend in a little bit.
Oh, yeah, we do get that from time to time here, don't we?
We do on the West Coast, yes.
Okay, good to know. Noted. Thanks, Joe.
Noted. You're welcome.
If you're in the mood for some sweet, juicy char siu or a bite of roast duck, and who isn't, look no further than Vancouver's Chinatown. The neighborhood is home to some iconic Cantonese barbecue. But you may not know that those delicacies almost vanished after health officers tried to ban them in the mid-60s. A new Museum of Vancouver exhibit is offering a searing look at our province's racist past.
It's pure and simple racism. Why they wanted to ban makes no sense because there was reputedly 2 people who died of food poisoning in Tacoma, Washington from barbecue meat that was not from a Chinese meat store. It was from a supermarket, and apparently it was chicken. Lighthead, Vancouver, da, 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 da. This occurrence happened in '65 in Tacoma. Well, what was happening throughout Canada and the United States? The purposeful means to try and eliminate, quote unquote, what the city saw as blighted areas. And we all know that Chinatown wasn't just Chinatown. There was the Italian community there, the Black community. It was a cluster of marginalized peoples. And the Chinese were the largest population in that area. So there was a big fight. The Chinatown merchants came out in full force. There were allies in the community. There has been this thread throughout the history that yes, Chinese are good laborers, but let's keep them in their place. Don't let them be successful. So we are fortunate to continue to have barbecue meats because of the good fight that happened.
Have you noticed some of the food you buy shrinking? You're not dreaming. CBC Marketplace looks at the downsizing of what you buy. That's next. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. A mural painted at a Nova Scotia elementary school has started a conversation with young students about the symbolism in painting. Colleen Jones caught up with the artist who taught the youngsters some techniques.
5 days, 2 classes a day, and 219 students, helping them find their inner artist. It was a conversation around this painting that Quentin Syllaboy did at the entrance of Shubenacadie District Elementary. That prompted him to volunteer to come and teach the kids some art techniques.
I got in a conversation about doing painting workshops, and he's kind of put together a program that brings Indigenous art into our school.
Hey guys! As he carries the very heavy container packed with art supplies, the first hurdle to jump over was paying for all the paint and supplies. After approaching many businesses and getting a lot of rejections, he started fundraising on his own, quickly raising $7,000, and then came Tollgate.
Basically, on reserve, you can schedule a day and you just kind of stand there asking for donations just outside, and then people that drive by, they throw loose change at you and a couple dollars here and there. And then, like I said, yeah, it's
1,800. Yes. How did that make you feel?
Pretty good. Made me definitely proud of my community. And this is a butterfly. Yeah, go ahead.
Day one of his epic teaching sessions.
So in Native culture, it's a huge bird.
Then it's time to hand out the artist tools and paint. But there's one rule they all must follow.
You paint whatever you want today, as long as it means something to you.
There was some artist block, but flourish they did.
It's kind of like a paint slingshot. It like sprinkles, makes all the stars.
Quentin made his way around the room offering tips, high fives, and encouragement. Some who told him their work was bad soon saw the beauty. Yeah, you came and told him it was bad.
Yeah, and then I wasn't happy with it, but then like I kind of just added more stuff to it, and then I was happy with it.
A lot of times kids are so structured in their lives, they're told what to do from the second they get up to the second they go to bed. So to give them just that little bit of freedom and watch them run with it and watch them flourish is something that truly is inspiring and needed by them.
While Quentin was rejected by some businesses in his initial request to support this project, there has been a big turnaround. The Kiwanis Club is donating money. The Indian Brook Band did too, plus the Schools Plus program. So his volunteer program, that is beginning with one school, is going to grow, spreading his love of art and his culture to even more kids. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Shubenacadie.
You may have noticed that lettuce, among other things, is rather expensive these days. Almost $6 a head for romaine in some grocery stores. And the steep prices are not just affecting home cooks. It's all because of a shortage in California where dry weather and disease have hit lettuce crops. Fast food chains Subway and Wendy's are warning customers about the shortage at some of their stores. And Swiss Chalet's Canadian division says its garden and Caesar salads are not available right now. And items that normally contain lettuce, like burgers, are going to come out without greens for now.
And so when this time hits us, there's not much we can do. We're not going to temporarily inflate our prices. We just have to kind of work around that. We do use spinach and kale and arugula as well, but those prices have also gone up.
Experts say the situation is temporary as other exporters in Mexico and Arizona ramp up production. Prices are expected to drop as more lettuce arrives on store shelves in December. Canada's inflation rate has remained stubbornly high, and so have the grocery bills for Canadians. As the central bank and all levels of government look at ways to address the high cost of living, the CBC Marketplace team looks at the reality on the ground. Here's more from Travis Danraj.
At Bella, Ontario's annual Cranberry Festival, it's on every merchant's mind. From cookies...
Peanut butter. Have you bought peanut butter lately?
...to clothing.
It's been extremely stressful.
The cost of making granola, hot sauce, even chocolate has all skyrocketed.
Things are getting worse.
Economist Armin Yalnizyan says the Bank of Canada's moves right now will continue to be key to help get prices under control.
Lower rates to stimulate demand, hike rates to cool demand. The Bank of Canada is really important to stabilize prices. Without it, we'd be screwed.
She also believes government needs to do more when it comes to social supports on affordable housing, helping with the pinch at the pump and bolstering the nonprofit sector like food banks.
Hi everyone. Today we're going to make the famous Premier's cheesecake.
Back in 2020's lockdown, Ontario's Premier went viral with this video. Marketplace crunched the numbers to make Doug Ford's cheesecake today costs about $15 more. Ford is not cutting so-called inflation checks to citizens, something other provinces, including Saskatchewan, Quebec, and Newfoundland, have done. When it comes to taxing excess so-called windfall profits of companies,
I don't believe in taxing companies. It just takes money out of their pockets, and when you don't tax them, it makes the climate and the environment here very good for companies to invest.
As provinces take different approaches, the feds have introduced about $8.9 billion in financial support to help Canadians deal with rising inflation. But many factors remain wildcards, like the war in Ukraine and supply chain bottlenecks, global forces that could make the road ahead one that's fraught with economic issues. Travis Danraj, CBC News, Toronto.
For more ways on how to survive inflation, watch the Inflation Survival Guide tonight on Marketplace at 8 p.m. on CBC Television and on CBC Gem. He is the only British Columbian crossing the globe to play in Qatar. After the break, we'll chat with Soccer Canada player Joel Waterman's family about his rise to soccer royalty. Stick around.
With the Olympic clock ticking down, a small protest group voices its opposition to the 2010 Games.
We're looking at a $1 billion security bill for the Olympics.
Vancouver. 6 years ago, when it was announced that Vancouver had won the bid, supporters said the cost would be more than offset by the stimulus to BC's economy. But that was before the world economy went into a tailspin. This week, even the head of Vancouver's Olympic Committee, John Furlong, admitted staying on budget is their primary concern.
I never thought that I'd be sitting here saying that this may be one of the areas that the organizing committee gets most of its kudos from, is the fact that it managed the most complicated project in the world against this backdrop and pulled it off.
But with the Games still 6 months away, those kudos could be a little premature. You only have to look at history. Back in 1976, the mayor of Montreal was quoted as saying, "Their Olympics could no more run a deficit than a man could have a baby." A quote that would haunt Jean Drapeau as Montreal spent decades paying off its debt. Calgary, on the other hand, boasted of a surplus in 1988. What happens in Vancouver may come down to luck.
I'd be amazed if we break even. I suspect we'll lose money.
I think we will benefit at the end of it all. We will recover most of the money that we are spending.
Worry about today, worry about tomorrow.
So far, the venues are finished, the Olympic Village is on target, and organizers say with scrimping and saving and partnering, it has stayed on budget. Furlong admits it's a challenge.
Well, I don't think any of us wanted what's happening, but at the same time, to use an athletic metaphor, I mean, we all like the victories that we grinded the hardest for.
But there is absolutely no wiggle room for error, last-minute expenditures, or corporate backouts. And there's still 6 months to go. Deborah Goebel, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Men's World Cup kicks off on Sunday, but as Chris Reyes reports, with the tournament being held in Qatar, one familiar sight will be missing from the stands.
A cold beer at the game. It's a sports fan combo that won't be happening at this year's World Cup. In a statement, FIFA said after talks with Qatar's officials, a decision was made to limit alcohol sales to licensed venues and other fan destinations outside the stadium.
I think the fans will find some way of having a beer. I don't think you need to do it so much at the game. Hopefully, with them not being able to drink, we can perform on the pitch to give them that sort of excitement and buzz.
The sudden U-turn on selling beer had one of FIFA's biggest sponsors reacting with less optimism. Budweiser tweeted, "This is awkward." The post was later deleted. Budweiser spends about $75 million to be the official beer of the tournament. With no breweries in the Middle East, the company has gone to great lengths to ship the product to the country. For some soccer fans who traveled to take in the tournament, they say that beer isn't really their top priority.
We are not worried about it. So for us, we are here for the soccer and not in order to get wasted. Of course, it would be better to have a beer during the match, but yeah, we will get it before and after in such pubs.
Other fans call it hypocrisy after videos surfaced of FIFA delegates drinking at the official draw party in April in Qatar. The Muslim-majority country has strict rules on alcohol consumption.
We need people to respect our culture, but we respect their culture also. So we make some specific places there you can drink a beer.
I think we should enjoy the game with or without it. At the end, it's a party, for everyone, and I think if they did it, it's for something. It has to do a lot with the religion, but I respect that, and I think everyone's going to enjoy the game, with or without it.
More than 1 million fans are expected to attend the tournament, which officially kicks off on Sunday and ends December 18. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Among the Team Canada players at the World Cup now, just one British Columbian. He's Joel Waterman from Aldergrove. He plays professionally for the Montreal Impact of the MLS. His parents spoke to CBC Radio's The Early Edition this morning with host Stephen Quinn.
I guess to call you guys proud of what your son has accomplished here has got to be an understatement.
Yeah, it sure is. It's unbelievable. It's still very surreal. We still try to kind of grasp it all. It's just kind of been a whirlwind week for us getting ready to go after we got the news. And so it's I don't know if it's going to kick in until we're actually there.
We were still dealing with that he's in the MLS, and now this is unbelievable.
But where were you guys in March when that call was made? What we just heard when you found out your son is going to the World Cup?
So it was on Remembrance Day, and we were home, almost going to bed, waiting for the call, and it came in. And let's just say we didn't get a lot of sleep that night because we were so excited.
I guess you didn't, eh? And Trent, your reaction when you heard the news?
Well, I was the same. We were getting ready for bed because of the time change, so we didn't, we kind of didn't know if we were going to hear that night or not. He said he was going to probably know, but it was very emotional. I can say that it was, it was kind of a dream that as a parent, you always strive and tell your kids that they could, live their dreams, and it was, when it happened, it was. Yeah, it was very emotional. I can say, just very emotional.
And what was the conversation like when you spoke to him after that, when he found out that Team Canada would be going to the World Cup?
Yeah, so we just found out on November 11th that he was going.
He was going to be part of the squad, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
And so it was, we're planning this trip in 8 days, but his words, "I'm going to the World Cup," and then you just never think you're going to hear those words.
That must be just wild for a parent to hear, really, when you think about that.
Totally.
Yeah, well, it was also he hasn't been going through the qualifications either. So it was he'd kind of been always on the outside. He'd been to 4 or 5 camps, but had never played, and actually never even received his first cap until this last was the 11th was his first cap. So. To going from it's kind of didn't really know, and then to being on the team was it was incredible to hear.
Vicky, Canada's first game is against Belgium on Wednesday. I don't want to say too much about the competition, but what conversations have you been having with Joel, and how's he feeling?
That's more Trent's area.
Okay. Trent?
Yeah. I just cheer on, and then they talk all the technical stuff.
Yeah, it's a they are in a very tough group, and it's going to be it's going to be very tough for them. But I feel a lot better after watching them play against Japan yesterday. They looked very good, and Japan's a top 20 nation in soccer too. So, and they've been to many World Cups. So I'm feeling a lot more positive. After yesterday's game. So I'm they're going to be competitive, and then anytime you're competitive, there's always a chance.
Well, that's true, and they're there, which is is that chance, I guess, to be competitive.
Yes, exactly.
And Trent, I understand that you and Vicky began coaching Joel on how to play soccer when he was very young. What are your memories of playing soccer with him?
It was actually Vicky was his first coach at U5 and 6, I think it was, and then I looked after him for the 2 years after that, and then after that, obviously he got too good for us to ever coach it. So so we had to let some people that really knew what they were doing to take over from there.
So, Vicky, you were with him at a very young age then. When there was a point, did he just do something amazing for a kid his age, and you went, wait a minute?
So in Aldergrove, it's such a small town that boys and girls play together. So he's got a twin sister. Hi, Kaylee. And so I coached them together. And like our first game, he went out and he could just take the ball from anybody at any time and just go down and score. So I was like, okay, I have to change my coaching tactics here and go, now you've got to share that feeling and pass the ball so your teammates can get that feeling as well.
That's the hard part. When you get really little kids playing soccer, I always called it amoeba ball, because it's like the ball is in the middle and it's just this blob of children around the ball.
Exactly. The swarm of blues, we used to call it.
Yeah, exactly. And so how did you, Vicky, how did you manage to get him to pass the ball to somebody else?
I think he grasped, basically, he was so coachable. So it's like whatever we told him we needed him to do, he could do. And not knowing, in a little town that, okay, he's good in our town, but how's he going to fare in the next big town? And he just kept showing us that his dream was still there. And look at him now.
Wow. Trent, is this a big deal in Aldergrove?
Very, very popular right now.
I bet, eh?
In the soccer community, and he's it's like you said, I wish it feels like there should be more going on, but with the World Cup, because I just don't think it's it has the same power that it has the rest of the world. But that's what we're striving for. That's what this is all about. Is this with the men, the women have been doing it for years now, and now it's men's turn to kind of put it in the forefront. So maybe more kids will decide to play soccer instead of hockey, and maybe and get us higher than number 40 or 41 where we are right now.
It's so good.
Sorry, we've heard from a lot of people that we haven't connected with in a while, and a lot of our friends and family are learning all about soccer that didn't really even know the sport. So we're growing it right from the core here.
And well, that's great, because you are a soccer family. It's so good to hear from both of you this morning. Safe travels to you, and enjoy yourself, and look forward to watching your son play.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Taylor Swift says it has been, quote, excruciating to watch her fans struggle to get her tickets to her upcoming tour. After she was assured Ticketmaster could handle the demand, instead, people waited for hours or were kicked off the site during pre-sales. The New York Times reports the U.S. Justice Department has already begun investigating Ticketmaster's parent company, Live Nation Entertainment. Tonight, millions of Twitter users wouldn't be surprised if the platform suddenly disappeared. The company's bleeding talent after new owner Elon Musk issued an ultimatum: work a lot harder or get out. Nisha Patel shows us the toll that could take on the lurching tech giant.
All right, let's go see where our badges are.
Okay. After almost a decade at Twitter,
everybody here, we're all about to get fired from Twitter.
These employees are out of work. New owner Elon Musk gave an ultimatum requiring what he called a hardcore work culture. They declined.
The platform is in turmoil. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's a mass exodus.
Twitter closed its offices for the weekend amid hundreds of resignations, shedding workers who kept the site running and reliable.
It's 240 million users. There's going to be bugs. There's going to be patches. We can see outages across the board. It's a skeleton staff.
Just last week, Musk fired nearly half the global staff, and companies like Volkswagen and GM have pulled their ads.
Advertisers are leaving, and if there's no revenue, then there is going to be no platform. So they got to get their act together.
Insiders worry the site won't be able to function. Many users now taking to the platform to say goodbye, with more than 1 million tweets labeled RIP Twitter, some looking for alternatives.
There isn't really one platform right now that I think can take Twitter's place. They're just too small, they're too complicated. So people are spreading out.
This technology journalist says the virtual town square is a powerful tool that's driven conversations, connections, even careers.
It's a news source for a lot of people, but it's also a place of community and joy. So definitely there's mixed emotions, but if it were to disappear, a lot of sadness.
Musk chirped at the drama, posting a photo of a tombstone with the company logo and writing, "What should Twitter do next?" Still, he closed this $44 billion takeover just weeks ago, and analysts say the chaos since is sending Twitter's value down the drain. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Buffalo, New York, no stranger to snow, is buried in it tonight. Some areas are said to get more than 100 centimeters before all is said and fallen. We'll take you inside the storm and see how Buffalonians are coping. Stick around.
We're not developing an on-road vehicle. We're focused primarily on the off-road space. So we're basically building an electric side-by-side to basically look at how electric vehicles work in the off-road space and develop technologies for that industry. The technology that's been developed to date for electrical vehicle platforms have really been for on-road. And on-road is really stable conditions. So you can think of yourself, driving on a paved highway or a street. It doesn't change too much. So the controls, although they're complicated, the environments don't change drastically. When you get in off-road, you don't have that luxury. Everything changes dynamically every second that you're driving. So it's a really big challenge to control vehicles in these kinds of scenarios. Our vehicle has a perception system, which is a system of cameras and remote sensing technologies that can see the terrain ahead of it. And then what it does, it interprets that terrain and makes decisions in the vehicle to help optimize control for traction, stability, etc.
As part of the software, we built everything also from scratch, is the communication with all the sensors and each one of the motors individually. And every time we do some improvements, we come here and test live. We have the ability to tune all these parameters in the vehicle in real time. We can limit the speed for some of our maneuvers, or we can actually change how the vehicle behaves.
It's going to be interesting over the next 10 years as we see the internal combustion engines become a thing of the past due to either popularity or for emissions standards and regulation. The electrification of this industry will happen, and so we see a big market for this. The recreational industry for these types of vehicles is huge. In total, it's about a $14 billion industry. So there's a very big segment that's going to be looking for these kinds of solutions in the coming years. This is actually the future of off-road vehicles, but it's also the future of on-road vehicles. In the next decade, we're going to see all vehicles become these sort of smart platforms as we integrate them more and more with the people around them. The vehicles become smarter, making more decisions on their own. We'll see that across all industries in automotive, and that includes the off-road industry as well.
Parts of western New York State woke up to a mountain of snow today, and by Sunday night, the size of that peak could double in some places. The CBC's Katie Nicholson went to Buffalo to see the lake effect in action.
Jimmy McKnight has been out on the road since midnight.
It's so warm, you know, so the snow's just heavy. It's wet, it's crappy, it's hard to push, so it's really hard to keep up with.
A massive lake effect system is pushing bands of thick snow from the Great Lakes across western New York well into the weekend, plunging it into a state of emergency with driving bans in place throughout Erie County. Inside the bans, slippery, impassable roads, near zero visibility, and snow thunder. Of course, that's nothing new to Buffalonians.
Oh, hear it? The thunder? Yeah. That's thunder snow. That's how you know it's coming off the lake, when it thunders.
When all is said and done, some areas could get as much as 121 centimeters. Suzanne Perez takes it all in stride.
This is probably where my car is. The top of my car is probably here, and all that is snow. So I don't know when I'll get it out, but maybe next week.
Next door, her 77-year-old neighbor digs in too.
I'm all right for 3-4 days. Okay. You know, I mean, if you're smart and live in Buffalo, that's what you do.
Buffalonians may be used to these storms, but this Torontonian is not.
It's horrible. I don't know. I've never driven a storm like this before. This is my first time, and it's crazy.
It's precisely why Buffalo's mayor is pleading with people to stay home as the band moves into the downtown this evening.
When the snow is falling between 3 to 4 to 5 inches an hour, you can't beat it. You are going to get stuck.
A little shoveling, a little sand and salt, and second thoughts about his decision to take a trip across the border.
This is just crazy. I'm thinking of going back.
But with the snow also forecast across southern Ontario, there may be no escape. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Buffalo, New York.
Good Lord, Joe.
Yes.
Never seen that. And I did not know. I had to look it up. Whether it was Buffalites or Buffalarians, Buffalonians. That's what we called them there. They're a hardy bunch.
There you
Good
go.
Lord.
The Buffalo, as opposed to, would you rather be an Ite or an Olean? Well,
I think an Olean in this case, because a Buffalite sounds like a buffalo bite, and I'm already hungry, so I want a little snack.
I agree with all of this, including your initial reaction to that snow. And Dan, I've actually been tracking these bands on the radar for the past 2 days. I want to show you what it looks like right now. This is lake effect snow, not a snowstorm. This isn't a system. These are essentially, this is a wind-driven event. This is the live radar and lightning detector. We are seeing thunder snow happening right now in Kincardine off the shores of Lake Huron. And we're just starting to see that band that sunk south in Buffalo through the day, starting to inch northward. And as those winds begin to take on more of a southerly component, we're going to see more snow Canada side overnight. So Niagara and then Picton, that's the BC and me, just east of Toronto, really starting to get hammered tonight. So Canada side, we're talking 60 to 80 centimeters. Buffalo has already picked up 150 centimeters. So this event's going to go on till Sunday. Definitely one for the books. -2 right now in through Toronto, -8 over towards Regina, and a 2 in through Vancouver. We are going to get sub-zero through the overnight. There's our Pacific system that changes the game. Moving into Haida Gwaii overnight tonight, look for 70-kilometer-per-hour winds in Prince Rupert for tomorrow. Prince George, you'll get that snow Saturday into Sunday, but that moisture really doesn't fill in for the South Coast until Monday. And then the door is open for system after system. I think we've got about 3 or 4 of them lined up through basically Monday to Sunday of next week. So looking to see basically the kinds of accumulations we've been missing for the past week. It will start in the northwest, where you can see we're getting most of the rain tomorrow. But for Vancouver, we could be talking 80 to 100 millimeters between Monday and Sunday, so making up for that deficit in the past week. So there you go, from cold and sunny to mild and very wet, Dan.
And it's not a mountain of snow. We'll take it.
It is, we'll take it. It's not 7 feet.
Here you go. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Talks at the COP27 climate summit are deadlocked over two main sticking points: phasing out all fossil fuels and financial compensation for countries bearing the brunt of climate change. The summit was supposed to wrap up today, but as Susan Ormiston shows us, talks have been extended until tomorrow.
In Sharm el-Sheikh, time is running short.
I am worried, but we will do everything we can.
Shuttling between delegations against a looming deadline, Minister Guilbeault with others trying to strike consensus on one defining issue. Vulnerable countries suffering from climate-related catastrophes are insisting that richer countries producing high greenhouse gas emissions pay up.
Not every developed country is as willing as Canada and a few others are to create this, but I think people are coming around.
A draft text is in play. Government ministers, staff, diplomats, lawyers, they'll be up all night, pushing and pulling towards an agreement. Still in jeopardy from this COP, on a knife edge, said one. What likely won't be in it is any push to phase down oil and gas production.
We have to put a focus on these oil industry, these fossil fuel industries that are raking up trillions and trillions of profits at the expense of leaving a world for the future generation.
In order to transition away, Canada, for one, is not pushing for it.
Our government continues to be uncomfortable addressing the major emissions from oil and gas sector and figuring out how to phase out that production.
The entire basis of our climate change plan rests on the fact that we need to reduce our dependencies on fossil fuels.
Many of us see dark clouds gathering on the horizon.
Breaking through the endless talk Friday, one plea. A 10-year-old from Ghana.
I appeal to you, have a heart and do the math. It is an emergency.
Complicating these talks tonight, it's confirmed that John Kerry, the U.S. climate envoy, has COVID. He's self-isolating with mild symptoms and continuing his negotiations in these last critical hours. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt.
Did you have a pandemic hobby? Perhaps it turned into a passion. One Montreal woman started making miniatures only to find out they transformed her life in a big way. You'll see everything after this.
Basecamp Resorts has secured a location to build a Nordic Spa in Canmore. CEO Sky McLean says plans include on-site lodging, food, the classic pools, and a mud bath.
I've always felt that Canmore really needs more experiences for people who don't necessarily want to hike up to that peak or mountain bike for 18 hours. People just want to come and enjoy the mountains and have some peace and quiet.
Scandinavian hydrotherapy has become the latest fad in the Rockies. Kananaskis Nordic Spa has been open since 2018. Group Nordique announced another spa just west of Calgary, the Harmony Spa, which has a projected 2025 opening. Elizabeth Torney-Booth is a freelance lifestyle writer.
Because I know the one in Kananaskis, like, people get anxious about going out there because it is kind of, they reach capacity and then you can't get in. And so I think that'll maybe calm people a little bit down if there's more options.
The plan here is still in its early stages with the hope to break ground on construction next year. Helen Pike, CBC News, Canmore.
I come here Monday and Wednesday to exercise and getting stronger each week.
Seth is always going after his hope of still playing basketball. He likes being active and doing anything. He always tells me if he wants to change something from his normal routine, he loves practicing his basketball shots. He can shoot free throws all day.
8, 9, 10.
One of the key pieces to the APEX program is that it's fully inclusive. So it's important that the people supported by Community Living Essex County come down and work out alongside our university members and our community members and get that inclusive exercise program. However, it's also a huge benefit to our students. So our students who work out alongside and see our program operate really see the ability in the people that Community Living Essex County supports and grasp a better understanding of their potential in the gym.
I hear you like biking.
Yes, I do.
How come?
because it's good for me to exercise.
What do you like best about coming to the Apex program?
I like those people there that help me out.
They're all happy to come every Monday and Wednesday, and it's nice to see that joy that it brings them.
And working one-on-one with people, you know, what's that like?
It's pretty rewarding. It allows me to take all my kin expertise and use it towards Mare, and also it allows her to get that exercise that she would like to throughout the day.
Do you like everybody that you work with here?
Yeah!
Is it one of your favorite places to come?
Yeah!
And you like biking the most?
Yeah!
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
What began as a hobby during the pandemic has become a career. When there was little else to do, one Montreal woman started creating sophisticated figurines. As Chloe Rinaldi shows us, she's now teaching others how to do the same.
My favorite part is that it's making my dreams come true. And by that, I mean, if I see a movie and there's a part, a scene that I like, and then I just want to build it. I want to build that room that I saw. So I'm able to do that. So for me, it just like, it feels like making the impossible possible. So I grew up in Israel. And 6 years ago, I moved here to Montreal with my husband. He works at the gaming industry. And at first I didn't really know what I'll be doing since I don't speak French. And when the pandemic started, I lost my job and I didn't know what to do. My sister sent me a kit to assemble and it took me something like 3 days. When I was done, I realized it's like, that's it. That's what I want to do. I want to make miniatures. I fell in love. To have something imagined and then to have it right there in real life, it's like you think of like, oh, I wish I had a house that looked like this. Think of so many things that you love and you want to have and you cannot have them in real life, and then I'm able to build them, and then I just have them. Well, it's small, but I have them. And I started teaching a little more than a year ago. I get to meet new people. I get to learn a lot. You know, teaching also makes you see things differently.
Very cool. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this program on CBC Gem, the free app, as well as YouTube, Instagram, and of course our website, cbc.ca/BC. Michelle Gassou will have your late local news at 11 o'clock right after the National. Have a good weekend. Stay safe.